So hi everyone, I'm Matt, and I grew up on a farm, and so I want to tell you a little story about what I used to do as a kid, because we worked on a dairy farm, and so I spent a lot of time with cows. So what I came to appreciate was that cows are just like people. You know, you build relationships with them, you want to spend time with them, you get intimate with them, especially when it comes to having to actually get the milk flowing. And so, as a kid, and I grew up, I learned to become very, very close with my cows. And my favorite cow, her name was Bessie. And Bessie and I sort of grew up together. And as social media took hold, we started following each other on Instagram. And so I would send pictures out a lot of times when I was at dinner, and Bessie would send me her pictures when she was grazing out in the meadow. And amazingly enough, she got a lot of followers, and those followers turned into a very simple set of people that fit into 3 buckets. There were animals, there were food byproducts, and there were places where people enjoyed singing and dancing. And so what happened was our social media following between Bessie and I got to the point where we spent a lot of time in discos. We ate a lot of ham together, and then eventually we moved in together and we adopted a pet ferret. So I hope all of you appreciate just how important it is to get close to the animals you love, and you know, you never know what milking a cow can lead you to.
Woohoo! Good job, Matt!
So, in order to do a startup, you have to be very imaginative, and you have to work with lots of different people. Because the process of doing a startup is not just the idea, but it's actually getting a whole group of people behind that idea and going out and convincing the world that the product that you have is actually useful to them. So, so I had this great idea about sandworm technology. And so we decided to go out and start up a firm about, you know, different sandworms and their technologies. And as you can clearly see here, there's really no clear trend of anything in sandworms. So the goal is how would we get the ones from Beetlejuice to go out and have market dominance? What is Smirnoff? Well, that's doing startups also requires lots of drinking. And the more vodka drinks, the better. So, since we were having really hard times getting funding, we went out and actually got our first angel investor from Smirnoff. So, with the initial seed money from Smirnoff, we decided to take our sandworm technology out, and we were out, you know, really trying to peddle it out in the marketplace, but it led to a lot of broken dreams. We were just hitting bust, despite our angel investment technology. And so one day we were coming back from a customer and we were trying to convince them that this was the best technology in the world. We were down in the south side of Chicago, and what did we come up to see but our car was on fire. The tires were burning, the engine was burning. And despite everything we did, we just couldn't put it out. So we ran to the bar next door where they were serving Smirnoff drinks, got some orange juice, but that didn't work either to put it out. So the car went up in flames, and so we had to move on. And so our last desperate attempt was we went to the estate of Michael Jackson to see if they would help us fund our sandworm technology dreams. But that didn't work out. So unfortunately our startup failed miserably. And most of the members of our startup team wound up as Navy officers on submarines around the world, because that was the only job they could get.
Good job!
Got a California, there are huge, huge trees, and you can't see the top of the trees. Guess what? Or guess why? Because that's where the babies come from. And you basically stand with a basket underneath, and you try to catch a kid when the kid falls down from the tree, and that's how you get babies in California.
That's why he hasn't
So-
gotten any.
But you have to be careful because you don't want to scare the babies away. So there is a proper dress code that you have to have when you go down underneath the tree and hold the carriage and make sure you catch the baby in the right manner. And so you need to have some sort of a 1970s ABBA style dress code. You go there and pray for it and hope that the right kid falls in your lap. But the interesting thing is that trees not just hold babies, they also hold animals. And so if you are in a search for a pet, that may work for you. If you're in search of a baby and the kitten falls on you, make sure that the kitten is not a ferocious one and it doesn't end up scratching you all over your face. Those are some of the tips that I want to share with you. And so once you have the kid or once you don't have the kid, don't get mad and don't start taking a sword in your hand and start whacking people around you. Make sure that you have a sane mind and a sane presence of mind to take the baby home, or if you don't have the baby, take the kitten home. So that's all I have.
Yay!
For those who do not know, Bollywood is the largest film industry in the world. We churn out all sorts of movies, blockbusters, crappy ones, but there is a movie practically every week, if not multiple movies. And most of them are musicals. So that's a little bit of background. And so the Bollywood industry needs to actually follow three big pillars. Economy. It's really important that the movie should be able to bring in a return on investment. Sometimes investment can be like, a really small one, but basically you need to make sure that the economy is there and you're getting your money back. Morality. Now that's a big issue with Bollywood movies, A lot of times you have movies which you can't watch with your kids, and they're immoral stuff that's being shown. And there's basically an authority in India which sits out there and sees, that the movies are appropriate for the audience. There's morality out there, so they have to actually sort of follow that rule as well. And mobility, the faster you churn out the movies, the better it is for the economy. You make money and you go forward from there. So all those three things, a producer has to keep in mind, when they are actually thinking about a movie. Very important to craft your message very clearly. Sometimes you go to these movies and you walk out, you think, what is this all about, So it's really important. It doesn't have to be a moral message out there, but there has to be a message, You need to make sure that, people walk away thinking, this is basically was a story and this is what is my key takeaway. And, basically, if you want to eat sausage while you're watching a Bollywood movie, go for it, but, it's all about how you message the content.
All right, no more.
Okay, so we are a group of parents, concerned parents, who have unruly children, and we would like to share with you all experience after you got your babies from your trees. What do you do with them? And this also applies to falling cats as well, if you happen to end up with a cat. So the first thing that you notice about unruly children is they don't do yoga. They cannot sit still. They cannot be quiet and meditate so that you can have some peace and quiet. Mayank, you would like to share some experience because I know that your kids, you try to have them do yoga lots of time.
Yeah, I'm all about yoga, right? Being neighbors, you've always seen me in a yoga pose. I've been trying so hard to get my kids into yoga, but all they do is yell and, you know the drill, right? I mean, your kids do the same. So I wonder what other kids do.
I agree with you completely. I've been teaching them how to hang them upside down. So that's the practice. That's what we've been doing in our own. How about you, Cindy?
Well, did we agree that they were unruly?
My kids are very.
Okay, so we have to have some conversation. So assume they are unruly. I think yoga gives them discipline. That's the first thing you have to understand. That's what the discipline of the mind is very important. And I think if anything you have to do with children, teach them yoga at a very early age. You're going to benefit. I did it.
Now Mayank starts. Or Surjit starts.
Cows, hens, and pigs. Kids love pig animals. Again, back to you, Ashish. They love cows, but they don't know how to milk a cow. They have to be too early for them. Hens, they love because that's where they get their eggs from. They're curious about how the eggs come, right? And then pigs, sausage, right? Our favorite food for them.
And so, you know, among all the kids that love animals, there are two different groupings of those kids. There's the extrovert and there's the introvert. So you have to really know whether they are introvert or extrovert so that you can actually work with them on an individual basis. Your thought, Mayank?
Yeah, it really sounds like the introvert kids would be into yoga, but that's not true. I'm telling you, the statistic is absolutely wrong. I wonder who really created this graph. Mo, would you know?
Not really, but I know one thing about these animal thing. It teaches them how to recognize their sibling at the early age.
Mo, advance the next slide. Mo, start.
Good message here, good message. You want to teach them run away from drugs? that serves two purposes. Of course, they stay away from the drugs, and they also become good athletes later in their lives.
And you notice on this picture, it's a really great example of those two types of children when they grow up. The introvert, which are the ones that's not doing anything but being chased, and the extroverts are the troublemakers. They're the one that's chasing and trying to get the introverts to do bad things.
You know, that's an interesting way of looking at the picture. Based on what you were telling me the other day, I almost thought that this was Michelle and this was her kid. But I know how you feel. That's okay. It happens to all of us.
Is that it?
No, one more.
Oh, I think this is another thing where we have to. Oh, this is the one?
Oh, let's go back, go back.
The right hand and the left hand side of the brain?
No, no.
Oh, okay, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I think this is very important. I mean, this shows that do not scare anyone. Do not scare the fairer sex. I think that is very important. It shows your freedom.
Wait, advance the next slide. No, okay, Surjit, you start off with this one.
All right,
Wrap it
just
up, guys.
being violent. Oh, wow. This is how we all evolved, right? That's our genealogy. So the left-hand side and the right-hand side used to talk about, used to communicate. That's the main thing. So you need to be analytical. You need to be also be practical. That's what is important here.
And if you notice on the two sides of the brain, things that are make the kids, the extrovert kids are usually thinking about Justin Bieber, JB, and the introverts, the one that tend to kind of be quiet but grow up to be really the thinking kind. They think about a lot of things like, you know, my world, and not just today, but what about my world version 2.0? Or, oh yeah, you can never say that it's impossible to do this project. Never say never.
Man, Michelle, you're getting aggressive about this. The way I was thinking about this was that the unruly kids on drugs are over here. And the kids who are thinking about drugs but not there yet are over here. But, you know, looks like these guys might be into yoga a little bit as well. But they're just, you know, debating whether they should do it or not. This is an important slide, like Surjit said. There's a lot of ways to interpret this. I wonder what more thinks about it.
I think you guys pretty much covered everything, but my take is audit your child. Just go through their, bedroom stuff. Just make sure, don't buy all that crap that they tell on the TV, don't, their privacy and stuff. Go through their crap. Just make sure, audit their bedrooms and everything.
Woo! Good job, guys.
Once upon a time, I was traveling and I went to China. And, this was at a time in my life when I just thought I was too cool for school. And I realized that I had no direction in my life, and I didn't know where I was going to go, where I was going to go to school and what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I decided that a good way to make money was, to use mayonnaise in cooking. And I thought, what is the best cuisine that I could integrate with mayonnaise? And it turned out it was not Chinese food at all, but in China, what they use in a lot of their cooking, ironically, are dog meat. And so I said, there are a lot of puppies in pounds all over the world, and this could be an excellent source and a cheap source of meat to use in my food. In addition to that, duck butts are very flavorful. And that was another thing. I thought, how can I make the best chow mein ever? And I said, I'm going to take noodles. I'm going to, take duck butts, put them all together, stir them up really well, and I'm going to take them to the farmer's market and see how they fare here, in China. And people absolutely loved it. So I decided to come back to the States, found Panda Express, and it's taken off. Now it has a $1 billion market cap, and that's it.
That's how Panda Express was started.
Let's talk about the differences between being masculine and being feminine. In our culture today, we have masculinity and femininity constantly talked about and confused. And especially to children growing up, they don't know what to do. They don't know what they need to do to be masculine, or they're constantly second-guessing themselves. Am I being masculine enough, especially if they're a boy? Or if they're a girl, am I being feminine enough? So the point of this is, these kids, they need to be taught straight. So they have to learn to be goal-oriented. So the thing is, a lot of times because of this world, they feel like puppets. They feel like, there's a puppet master telling them what to do to be more masculine, or what to do to be more feminine. But they need to just ignore that, because if they're not themselves, then they're just going to be completely miserable. And you see that in statistics today, because there are a lot of people who are depressed. So again, a lot of times we need to teach our children to not worry about being masculine and not being feminine, otherwise they're going to turn into a robot. They're going to be a robot walking around from the day to day with no direction in life. We need to teach them to be goal-oriented and to not be robots. So in closing, we need to really, really invest in our children, because if we don't invest in our children, then the sharks of this world will eat them up. So do you want your children to be sharks of this world, or do you want them to take off and fly like these planes on your right?
So we've heard a lot about, dental hygiene. You must brush, you must floss, gum cleaning. That's all a hoax. It's just about making money. So these guys couldn't be real doctors, they couldn't operate on your heart or your brain, so they figured out, let's just clean teeth and make money out of it. Really, it comes down to negotiation skills. They have just created this multi-billion-dollar market. These dentists are richer than heart surgeons today, and it's all about negotiations. You can go in and get a valve change, but that's a one-time fee. With dentists, you're gonna keep coming back every 6 months, and then as you get older, there's more subscription fees that are gonna come out of that. So it's a long time paying profession. Of course, they've gone into the marketing and the advertising industry. Some guy doesn't have good teeth, you don't want to go out on a date with them, or vice versa. If the girl's mouth is smelly, maybe she wouldn't make such a, fun dinner partner. And this is all dental stuff. This is all marketing. At the end of the day, what did we do in the old times? What did Adam and Eve do? Did they go and floss with their teeth? Did they actually go and, actually do dental hygiene stuff?
No.
In the jungle? Do you think so? Do you know any animal that goes and, flosses or brushes or cleans every morning and every night? See, this is all marketing. It's product management. So, we've taken away the joy from animals, children, and eventually, force people to put a bag on their head if they don't have a good set of teeth. This is just pathetic.
So buying a house in California is actually a pretty painless experience if you have at least a couple $1 million in the bank, which obviously I don't. What happens is you end up going to a bank who basically treat you like you're an octopus and try and step all over you with interest rate negotiations and asking you for all kinds of documentation and making sure that they know everything about you, about your background, your occupation, your family history, even your genetic history in some cases. So if it does turn out that way, it can be a pretty scary experience. And so what ends up happening is that you go through a very stressful 2 weeks of dealing with loan officers and talking to your agents and your buyer's agent and your seller's agent, and you look at tons of open houses, and it's a pretty stressful time. And what ends up happening is you take that stress out on the younger kids, and it gets to them because you're stressed about buying a house, and they're stressed looking at you being stressed, and you're dealing with tantrums all over the place. So buying a house is not just about what you're dealing with; it's also about what your family's going through. The best solution to that is to have lots of food, and make sure that your refrigerator is always stocked with whatever the kids want to eat. Right? So if it's jalapeno, spam, or fries, or lots of cookies and chocolates, that's what you need. And that's really what keeps things sane in the process of buying a house, and makes the whole experience a lot smoother.
All right.
I want to talk today a little about a little touchy subject, is colonoscopy. I know we all have health issues from time to time. I know it's something we kind of talk about behind closed doors, but I want to bring all of that out into the open. It's important to get the word out. It's important to get the word out. Facebook has been very instrumental in doing that, to help target the right people, getting the right message out about how we need to keep clean. How we need to involve our pets in it, our family in it, and be vigilant about having the operation done, having our insides remain clean so that we can live a full and healthy life. But there are some people who are against us. Some people who don't believe what we believe. We don't believe that colonoscopies can be good for us. We don't believe that cleaning ourselves is good. These enemies are called cats. And part of our Facebook campaign has been to refute their claims, to address their claims in a peaceful manner. But as you can see, they're constantly coming up with arguments against, totally unfounded. And so, there are a lot of things that cause the need for colonoscopy, and I want to close with some of the things you might have fears about. You want to make sure you stay informed about your polio monkey serums. Those don't work. Those are placebos for colonoscopies. You want to be informed about your fluoridated water. Those may or may not work for your teeth, depending on what you believe about dentists. But those are also not substitutes for colonoscopies. And mental hygiene. That's definitely a placebo. Clean thinking does not mean a clean body. So don't be part of this uninformed public. These children who don't believe in colonoscopies and don't believe what you hear from the cats. Thank you.
The topic is how do I date Indiana Jones, or how to go about dating Indiana Jones. I had a lot of experience with that. come this far with hundreds of kids, and all because of Indiana Jones. And 3 of them are right here. All right, blue sky thinking, and it's all because of blue sky. We don't have red sky, so I've got all my inspiration from the blue sky that we see, and that's how you go about dating Indiana Jones.
Green grass. So grass always looks greener on the other side. You might think dating Indiana Jones is fun, but think about it. I mean, you're just in your first drink and he has to run to settle some score with someone, right? Also look at it from the other side. Let's look at it from the perspective of my perspective. I set up dates for Indiana Jones, and on half of the dates, I lose my business because he's not there. So it's all about perspective. Fish might look bigger in a smaller pond, or in a bigger pond, that same fish might look smaller. So it's about perspective.
All right, so a lot of us grew up, worshipping Indiana Jones because we wanted to be very adventurous. We wanted to, go to the jungles and, go to some new and exotic places. And that's how, as Nitin mentioned, some of us here grew up sort of thinking about dating Indiana Jones. But eventually what happens, a lot of us, they grow up and we discover, there are other options. And then we give it a little thought, and finally some of us outgrow our love for Indiana Jones and figure out that that's not who we want to be. So we start dating women.
Well, maybe I'm one of the son of Indiana Jones, and with Nitin here, but needless to say, because of dating Indiana Jones, I grew up crying a lot. I think I'm gonna grow up being more like a zombie, because it's just not a life for me, being the son of two women. I mean, it gets its perks. At least he's coming out with a new movie. Thank you.
Woo!
High heel shoes. Let's see. When I grew up, I saw this cartoon called Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. I always had this fear that I would end up being one of the dwarfs. Short and never been able to reach up to high trees. I would never be able to get the cookies from the top shelf. Never. So and there it was. I found my solution. What I saw was chairs usually have rods towards their end that lifts them up. Instead of me always trying to drag a chair, sitting on it to reach the cookie jar, I decided to invent my own heels. I stuck cardboards with rods underneath it and decided to practice on those. Found my solution. So all these years, I've practiced and practiced and practiced. I have to tell you, it was not all that easy. There were moments when I felt like I was in a dark tunnel, going towards a dark tunnel. I fell down so many times. I bumped my head and I couldn't see anything. It just felt like I was going into that tunnel, never being able to come out of it. But it's okay. I'm not the kind of person who wants to give up. I still wanted to wear heels. So I always practiced. I invented my own shoes. I practiced wearing my mom's heels as well. But it's okay. Eventually, I knew I would get out of this scary, scary, scary tunnel.
And that's it, you guys.
Is the balance between trying to keep it funny, but at the same time, thinking on your feet, right? So that's always a challenge. So if the goal is to keep it funny, then it's, then you sort of compromise on being more, creative versus. So it's always a fine balance. So if content is key, then you end up being less humorous. I guess that's my.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point.
So I think my take was the talks that we had a little story, where the talk has some background, some little story, really made it interesting and really pulled you in the first few seconds. So I think that was my learning, that have a story
rather than coming up with a storytelling story.
Definitely.
So my experience in doing a group thing is to be able to keep the story consistent and messaging out not disparate points of view, but actually have it consistent as a whole story. And having different people in the group, it's kind of important, like, you kind of like cue the next person and just keep it as if you've been practicing for a long time. And
Agreed, that was the hardest one because not only you were concentrating on the topic, humor, and the person who was handing you the mic to go ahead and have a smooth transition. It was good.
Payal?
I was just going to say that, I just had a talk with my kids about where babies come from, so I can give you the books. But I think the group thing was very interesting, especially the one that Michelle's group did, because it felt like, 4 storylines going in parallel, almost like a movie. I really liked it.
So you guys, I have a question. How do you guys think this experience relates to you guys being product managers? Are there similarities? Are there stark differences? What are the similarities?
Oh, definitely. I mean, for groups, and that's the reason why I kind of suggest group, because a lot of times when we talk to customer, it's just not a one-on-one kind of thing. So we would have whether a group of product managers or product managers and engineering going together talking to the customers. And it's kind of an important skill to kind of key the other person so that you can tell a consistent message to the customers. And it's not like one person saying one thing, another person saying one thing.
I think it is one thing I realized that how creative you can be. That's very important as a product manager. You have to be creative with your message. You have to be creative with your products. You have to be creative in every aspect of your job. And that's what is important. And that's what I learned. I mean, look at the picture and say, wow, we have to think about something. How creative you can be.
Sridhar?
Yes, you have to think on your feet because when you're presenting to customers, a lot of times there might be some questions that you may not be expecting, and how do you actually respond to those questions while keeping the message very consistent. That was a good learning experience.
Anybody else?
It's a good analogy, like as product managers, there are changes, right? That, think of a technology S-curve and things like that. So if you're managing a product, you have to be aware that you're going to need to pivot, at a certain point in the future as technology is changing. We're constantly kind of getting, cloud and that kind of thing. I think that ability to be flexible and kind of pivot off of what you're already doing is, kind of an analogy that makes sense.
Alex?
I think we focus a lot of times with presentations on content, but to Brian's point, I think you want to stay flexible in what the point is, because that changes a lot. You take conversations in different directions, and you got to, the point of what you're trying to say, or what you want to address, changes you got to live with that.
Matt, do you have any thoughts on both?
Yeah, actually, I mean, for me, and this is you guys know I've done improv a few times, and the thing that I always struggle with, which was apparent right when I jumped up there that you have to throw away, is don't think too far ahead. It's like just speak what's on your mind, and usually it's the genuine thing that you feel, and it's heading in the right direction. And I think sometimes as it relates to what we do, it's like we spend a lot of time in analysis, and that's good sometimes, but sometimes you should be, like Smith said, up on your feet and, coming up with what's top of mind. And everyone's smart, everyone's got opinions, everyone's got a view on what's happening in the market, the customers want, and share them. It's great. So I thought this was awesome. This was like way beyond what I was expecting. So I thought it was a huge amount of fun. It was great to see everyone up there. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And really huge thank you to Christina. Christina did all of this. And I say we replicate this and do it over again, do it in other sites, and It's fun. It was great. So it was really cool to see everyone up there. I think especially with EMC World upon us and like people getting ready to get in front of a bunch of customers, or even if you're not going to EMC World, EBCs, it's like a good motivator. This is my highlight of the week by far. So thank you everyone for participating.